Okay, hi, hello. Hello, everybody. This is Linda Downey, and I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Libby Wright, and we wanted to speak with you live tonight about a really important topic to us, motherhood, and bringing our mind, body, and spirit to our journey of motherhood. But before we dive into that, I want to introduce myself if you're new in my world or you're just coming across this, and then I'll let Libby introduce herself. So my name is Linda Downey, and I am a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and a transformational health coach, and I work with women to help them break cycles of anxiety, chronic stress, health issues, things like autoimmune, chronic health, chronic fatigue, things like that, and really complete their past in order to move forward in their life. So that's who I am. That's what I do. And I think a lot of what I do is really pertinent to this topic of motherhood and the journey that is. And Libby, I would love if you would just share your amazingness and then we'll dive in.
Well, my name is Libby Wright, and I work with physicians who want to transition from a straight traditional practice to a functional medicine practice or some kind of a variance there. I also help them with their patients and just kind of getting them educated in this new way of being. And I have been a mom for 26 years and I've homeschooled for 27. And yes, the math does not work on that. I was homeschooling my cousin's kids before I had kids. So I've been homeschooling longer than I've been a mom. And I'm in my last year doing that. So obviously motherhood is a big topic to both Linda and I. And wow, there's so much we can cover in this. So let's get started. This is a juicy topic. I'm excited to talk about it.
Okay, well, let's start with that. Why? Why are you excited to talk about it?
I think I'm excited to talk about it because I'm in the classical education world with the homeschooling. I've always kind of done like the Charlotte Mason type of method. For all of you homeschool nerds, you know what that is. But I've always been in that. And one of the things we talk a lot about in the program I'm in is redeeming our education. And how when we're homeschooling our children, we're really getting the chance to like a do-over for our own education, and maybe things that intimidated us or we were afraid of or we didn't think we were good at, we get a chance to learn again as we're teaching. And the reason this topic is so powerful to me, I think, is because oftentimes when we're parenting, we get the opportunity to reparent ourselves too.
Yes.
Because no matter how hard our parents tried, no matter what wonderful people they were, or what good they wanted to do in our lives or not, uh, nobody comes out of childhood unscathed. And, maybe it's the bully at school and you have like a charmed life at home. Maybe there's an illness that happens or a death. Maybe like there's all these different things that happen that we don't even control. And the good news is, even if you didn't have an idyllic, perfect childhood, at any time, you have the opportunity, just like I get to redeem my education every year I've taught my children, you have the opportunity to redeem your childhood by reparenting yourself and finding those wonderful things about you that maybe got lost along the way.
I love that. Yeah, so we're diving right into reparenting, and I do want to ask people in just a moment. So I'm throwing this out there so you can think about this. What are the views or the rules that you have in your head about what being a mother looks like? Like, what do you think is it has to look like this? What's the standard that you hold yourself to? So think about that, and we would love to see your comments if you feel like sharing that. But
maybe we should talk about what reparenting is, because maybe not everyone even knows what that term means. I know in our world we know what that means, but would you mind just defining, Linda, what do we mean when we're talking about reparenting?
Yeah. So while you're thinking about your rules about motherhood, let's dive into reparenting a little bit. And reparenting is really learning to connect to your inner child, learning to listen to that inner child voice, and then to provide what was missing for that inner child, or what is missing. So when we look at healing, what those wounds are, it can show up in things like not having great emotional regulation. So not being able to control your anger, or, not communicating well. You pick up your marbles and go home kind of thing with your partner. That's your inner child showing up. And when we do the work to reparent that, so let me take a step back. That's probably how you needed to be, or how you saw the best way to cope in your childhood at the time. So when we say, hold on, what's happening? What are you upset about? And let me listen to you, we have an opportunity to break those cycles that are showing up in our relationships today.
Mm-hmm.
What would you add to that, Lib?
I think what I would add is that oftentimes it's just about recognizing and not judging ourselves for that. Like, okay, a lot of times how it showed up for me when my kids were young, I'm a pretty patient person generally, but like there would be these times that one of my kids would just annoy the heck out of me. Like I'd just be like, come on, get it together. Okay, they're 3, but come on, get it together. Come on. And what I found, if I really reflected on it, was that was usually the times I felt the same way toward myself.
Mm.
And so if I could really listen to that and not judge it and go, oh, wait, what do I say to myself when I get feeling that way?
Yeah.
Come on, Libby, like get it together, knock it off. And maybe that's the way our parents talk to us. Maybe it's just the way we're naturally wired. Maybe it's the way a teacher or a principal or a coach talk to us. And, a lot of reparenting can also be changing the tapes in our head, right? Like, okay, no, I mean, when I got really sick, I had 4 little kids. I had advanced stage neurologic Lyme in my spine and brain. I couldn't walk. I couldn't use the left side of my body. It was really rough. We weren't sure I was going to survive. And I used to get really frustrated with myself, like really angry, because this was not what I envisioned. You want to talk about the different rules? Well, I was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom who homeschooled, who like baked the cupcakes for everybody, who, was there at church, went before the doors opened and the last one to lock up. That's what being a good woman and a good parent, that was my programming. And, there's some beautiful things about all of that, but I could not do that physically, even if I wanted to. It just wasn't in the cards for me. And I would get so angry with myself. Like, come on, just pull it together. You can do better. You can show up more. You just, all these things. And what I had to start doing was changing the conversation and saying, I actually, and I mean, it's been like 20 years almost of this work now within myself, where I'm just like, no, I'm sitting here going, okay, if I was sitting with little Libby, what would I tell her? Oh my gosh, you're doing a great job. You showed up today. I see that you're in pain. I see that you can't walk and you're still trying to get to that soccer practice. I see that you didn't sleep at all last night because you were in so much pain, and you're still making breakfast for your kids, even if it's cereal and milk. Like, you're showing up for them and you're loving them the best way you can. And really flipping that script of acknowledging, instead of the frustration that I felt toward myself, acknowledging and encouraging myself to just be okay with the circumstances as they were, because I couldn't change them, but also to just be kind to myself, because I would never have talked to my children or anyone else for that matter the way I was talking to myself in those moments of frustration. And so, I kind of had to reparent my adult self in a way and just be like, okay, hold on, this isn't the right way to treat yourself. So I know that was a rambling answer, but
it was awesome. It was a great answer. And we needed to hear every part of it. And what I was thinking of when you were speaking is, you had really, really significant health issues. I also had significant health issues. I wouldn't say to the degree that you did. I didn't ever think I wasn't going to survive, but I really thought my life is not looking the way I thought it was going to. My body and my health, I feel betrayed. But even if you're a mom who doesn't have or hasn't had significant health issues, the way you see yourself as a mom and what you think that's supposed to look like. And it's gonna dovetail right into the way you see yourself as a partner, the way you see yourself as a woman,
Yep.
I believe, and all of that. But you know, those, like, to speak to your what you were speaking to about the programming, right? The conversation that we have in our head. If you can just even take a step back and recognize that's my programming. Is it really true or necessary that I need to think this way, that I need to have imposed this level of standards on myself? And how is my commitment to these standards actually detracting from my connection with my children?
Oh, absolutely. And, I see this hugely in the homeschool community, especially with moms who are trying to do it all and they are trying to do school at home. I know we see it in lots of different ways, but this is an easy example I see all the time. And these moms are burning out because there's no way that you can effectively teach 4 or 5 grades at the same time, doing it the same way you would do it at a public school or a charter school or a private school. You have to adapt and do it in a different way. But if you're programmed that, no, we sit down at I mean, I've been in homeschooling homes where the children actually each have a desk and they have a schedule they follow. That's not the way I did it because I wouldn't have survived with all the things I had going on. But, I had to recognize that, okay, if I believe that this is the only way, the only correct way to do something, I'm going to burn out and I'm going to fail. If I am willing to step back and go, okay, well, in the context of all this, what is logical and what is kind to me and to my family? And that applies to everything, not just schooling. That applies to how you relate to your children. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine who had, had an older teenage student or kid who she had grounded. And I was like, how's that working for you? Does it work well to ground a older teen? I've never grounded my children because that wasn't, I don't know, that just wasn't the way I parented. And it was really interesting to hear that, well, that's what we do. That's how we do it. Is it effective? Well, not really, but that's how we do it. And so if we could just step back and no judgment to her. I mean, she was trying to do a good thing. The point is, like, if we get so ingrained and entrenched in our programming and this is the only way, then we're probably going to be pretty disappointed with ourselves and with our life circumstances pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I want to bring up, and then we're going to really pull in the mind, body, spirit connection with all of this. But I also want to pull into, so that's a conversation about how we see ourselves as mothers. And we've both acknowledged, and listen, Libby's using homeschooling as a really clear example. You may not be a homeschooler, but I'm sure that you can relate these ideas and these concepts to however it's looking in your household. Yes. But now I want to talk about when you have children who don't match what you thought your child was going to be. So I know, Libby, I think there were some issues sometimes with your kids, maybe health-wise. I'll just share, if people don't know me, I have a daughter who passed away 5 years ago and was massively, catastrophically, medically fragile all of her life. That wasn't the child that I thought I was going to have. And in the world of special needs children, which became our world, we lived at the hospital, we were always in different therapies. I saw a lot of parents who were not okay with the children that they had, because parenting can be a lot about your ego, a lot about, this is just an extension of me. Look how great my kid is. Look, they're either doing the things that I did when I was young, or maybe they're doing something different, but it's all about what a great kid I have. And when you have a child who is different than what you thought it was going to be, there's a whole beautiful gift available in learning how to love unconditionally. And also learning that I'm just the portal for this human being to come to this earth. But God's entrusting me with this life, however this life looks. And it may not match what I thought, but it's its own perfect life in the way that it is. So a lot of times mothers, we even have a term now, helicopter mom, making sure it all goes their kids' way, or making sure their kids are doing this, this, and this. And do they have the resume that they need to have by the time they're in 6th grade, and all of the things. And I think there's such possibility in learning to accept when your kid is actually really different than what you thought.
I mean, and look, I just want to speak to this for a second, Linda. Several things come up. First of all, like, you're such an amazing testament to unconditional love. Everybody can just see it in who you are as a person. And I just think that's so beautiful. And I know that was something that was forged in you through a lot of years of fire. And, I think one of the biggest gifts we can give to ourselves and our families is accepting the fact that it will not be perfect. No matter, I don't care if you're a homeschool mom, a special needs mom, a working mom, a stay-at-home mom, a mom who cares for, elderly, whatever it is, whatever you think it was going to be, it will not be that. Not always, at least. You're going to, and you don't, a lot of times you don't have control or knowledge beforehand that this is going to happen. And, our kids, thank God, were all born healthy. However, they had this hidden genetic condition we didn't know about. And when one of our kids was 16, he went from totally healthy, doing all the things in the band, in, friends and all that, to basically what equated to a nonverbal autistic like state. I don't know how else to describe it. He didn't know who his siblings were. He couldn't communicate. He couldn't speak. He got a traumatic brain injury from some mold biotoxins in a water damaged building. And wow, talk about grief. I felt like all of you moms will get this. When you're playing Candyland and you're exhausted and you're just like, I'm almost to the end. Yay, we're really close. Because this is 3 years after I've finally gotten into remission and can walk again mostly and everything. And then I go back to this basically toddler in a 16-year-old young man's body, and spent the next 3 years of my life locked in a room with him. And the specialists all told us to put him, in a group home, and that was just it. And my husband and I just said, no, let's see what else we can do. That's an option if we need to do that, but let's see. And he is now I'm happy to report he's now healthy and doing well. However, I remember my friend who had a special needs child, my husband's a physician, and he delivered my friend's baby. And we knew that he was more than likely going to have this issue before he was born. And I remember she came to me and said to me, Jamie gave me some really good advice before I had my baby. And that was, it's okay to grieve the loss of who you think your child was going to be. In fact, in a way you must, so that you can accept the child that you've been given.
Yes.
And they have a beautiful family and a beautiful life with this child now. And, and so I really took that advice to heart. I was like, okay, I need to grieve the loss of what the trajectory I thought my life was going to go on with these kids, because, wow, I don't think it's going to go that way. And, I'm very grateful that we're stronger and better and, closer than we've ever been now. But it was a lot of years of touch and go, and really not knowing, is our marriage going to survive? Is our relationships going to be intact? The other kids were angry and hurt and frustrated and didn't understand why mom just disappeared for 3 years. Well, I'd be angry and hurt and frustrated too if my mom disappeared for 3 years. But, the things I would tell them was, look, I would do this for any one of you. I'm fighting for him because I love him and I love you. And so, and the other thing I want to say is there's just always this opportunity to redeem. So even when we don't do it perfectly, even when things don't work out exactly the way we want to, there's still an opportunity for us to redeem that and build an even stronger, better relationship, if we're open to it. So.
Yeah. And being open to it, that's the perfect segue to the body, mind, spirit connection, because unlike you, my marriage did not survive. And I'm always struck, Libby, when we talk, by your gentleness, and I've heard other friends call it your light, and what you bring to the world is just such a special light. I wish I had access to it back when, chipping away, the marriage was really, going south. But that's the way it went. And it went the way, I guess, that it was meant to go. And we're great friends now. I have a great friendship with my ex-husband. But when you are not paying attention to the connection of your body, your physical body, what you're doing, how hard you're efforting, the decisions that you're making and taking action on, that's your physical body. Your mind, paying attention to and being responsible for the conversation that you're holding, which includes judgment, blame, grievances, things like that. That's, how is your thinking wired? And then your spirit, which is your connection to your heart. And when you're connected inwardly to your heart, then you're connected to your source, because we come from source. I lost a lot of that during those years. And that's why we wanted to come on and have this conversation, because if you can keep the connection between your physical body, the way that you think, and your spiritual self, whatever's going to show up is going to be so much easier to navigate. And you're going to unpack it in a way where you see the gold rather than just the terribleness, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. And, I'll say too that, we all manifest that stress differently. And, it's, for some people, maybe it's okay, well, it just really shows up in the physical body, like it did for me. The stress was all physical for me. It was physical pain. I turned that anger inward, and it turned into pain. And until I learned how to not only deal with that and grieve the losses, but also recognize that, like, okay, I have to take care of myself too, or I'm not going to be a good caregiver. Because I was just like, throw myself under the bus until, and I wasn't taking good care of me. And I think that's another really important thing for moms to understand. Some of us explode, some of us implode. I'm an imploder. So I'm probably not going to hurt anyone around me, but I'm going to melt down internally. And that shows up in lots of different ways for me physically. Now, fortunately, I've now got good coping tools and a better tape playing in my head. And I've reparented myself enough that those, even when those things happen, I have some new tools in my toolbox to be able to deal with them. And I think a lot of us just are not equipped with the right tools in our toolkit to know how to handle these things. Because we watch our parents, we watch our grandparents, we watch the people around us in our lives. And that's kind of all the tools we have, right? However well equipped they were or not is kind of our baseline, right? And so I think it's really important to bring up that we as moms, one of the best gifts we can give, and I totally did not get this when I was younger, one of the best gifts we can give is making ourselves healthy and whole emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, and physically, and not throwing ourselves under the bus. When we do that, not only are we better equipped to be parents, we also are teaching our children tools. My kids have innate tools in their lives to deal with stress that, gosh, I never had. And I don't know of anyone else that ever had, because I was intentional with it. And so, Linda, I'd love for you to speak just a little bit on how, what kinds of tools people can use to be able to navigate these things in a different way, because there's probably a lot of moms out there watching going, yeah, sounds great. Like, I don't have time to go read a book. I don't have time to do this or that, or I'm not sure where to look. What would you tell people? So I've got
one thing I would say is get a pet, a dog or a cat that you can hug and love, because they bring unconditional love and it helps your nervous system. So that's a great example. But yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about that, and just to tie something up before I go into some of the tools that we use in our work with our clients. But the concept of taking care of yourself, I totally relate to. I remember bringing Charlotte, or not taking care of myself. I remember bringing Charlotte to, it was really a myofascia. Somebody was going to work on her fascia. And the woman said to me, Mom, how are you doing? Do you want to get some work done? And I got angry, like right away in my head. I was like, don't ask me how I'm doing. I'm here for my kid. I didn't say that to her, but that's what went on in my head, right? Like, this isn't about me. This is about my kid. And that was very much disconnected in my body, mind, and spirit. And it does go back to when I said at the very beginning of this conversation, think about your rules, because a rule that I think a lot of women have is I give my all. I lay down and let you run over me. That's what I do as a mother. Or not even let you run over me, because nobody wants to run over you. We just put ourselves so in the background until we're so exhausted and sick. And that's a rule, or, the messaging that I had is what it takes to be a mom. So that's why I brought that up at the beginning, is you're going to have to break some of your rules, I think, potentially. So we use tools to help you break your rules, to help you break your messaging, and to rewire different circuitry, because the thoughts that you have will keep coming over and over and over. And you'll feel in your body like you're doing something wrong when you hand over the reins to someone else and you give yourself a break. It's not going to feel good in the beginning. So that's one of the tools, is rewiring. And there's lots of ways to do that, but actually getting clear on what are my rules, what ones are serving me, what ones aren't, and where can I change that? And then practicing being in action with those new steps, and practicing thinking differently. Also, I think practicing, and there's lots of ways to regulate your nervous system, but doing different things to help regulate your nervous system. One thing as a heart math practitioner that I use with my clients is several heart math techniques, but heart focused breathing. Just put your hand on your heart. If you touch anything, if you touch your elbow, now your brain is like, oh, elbow, right? You're like keyed into your elbow. Whereas before you didn't even notice you had an elbow, right? If you touch your heart, your brain goes, oh, heart, I'm connected right there. And you can spend 4 or 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be an hour. 4 minutes of breath work connected to your heart, and breathing in and visualizing love, compassion, acceptance, anything along those lines. Acceptance for yourself, acceptance for the circumstances that you're currently in, because I promise you, they're not going to stay. Your circumstances are going to change, especially when you can focus on something good is coming for me. So acceptance, and get yourself connected to your heart so that your heart and your brain are working together, is, I think, very, very important. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think I want to go back for just a second to a point you were making just a minute ago, because sometimes I think we don't always know. Things are so deeply ingrained. Sometimes we don't even realize it's a rule. Like, talking about giving everything for your being a mother. I think oftentimes we as women will get a martyr complex, right? Like, oh, I did everything for the kid. I did everything for everyone. And, and then this and then that. And we have all these stories we tell around it, right? Yeah. Like I did everything, and we did everything. There's no doubt. But I mean, it's the attitude in which we're taking around it, but also listening to ourselves. And if you don't know what you say all the time, just listen to your kids for a few minutes. Because they parrot it back all the time. I remember one time one of my kids was having a rough time, and they just kept saying, I'm trying. And they were so frustrated. And I'm like, wow, that's really annoying that they say that. And again, I'm not an annoying person, but something about it was just like a rub in me. And then I'm sitting there and I'm frustrated and tired. I think I was passing a kidney stone or something, and I was just not coping with life well. And I'm just like, but I'm trying. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's where that came from. And if we can not be sitting there judging ourselves, but listening for these little cues. And then I was just like, okay, well, this is just a habit. And habits can't be broken, but they can be replaced, right? So I said, okay, well, it's just a habit that when I'm having a hard time, I justify it by saying I'm trying. So instead of that, I'm going to say, I'm doing. I'm doing. I'm not trying, I'm doing. Now, whether
Yeah.
I succeed at it, I don't know, but I'm doing. I'm not just laying down. I'm not just a doormat. I'm doing. And
Yeah.
for me, just that little switch of recognizing first that, okay, I hear that in my kid. It stirs something up in me emotionally, because if he came up to me and said, "Hey mom, your hair is purple," I'd be like, yeah, no, it isn't. The reason it bothered me was because there was some belief or truth in there that I resonated with. And so I came to, oh wait, I'm trying. No, I'm not trying. I'm doing. I'm better.
Yeah.
I don't need to justify this. I'm doing awesome. And really being like that coach and that encouragement to me. And I mean, sometimes I'd even have to say it out loud just to kind of break that habit. And then it kind of, oh wait, that I shifted away from that. So sometimes if you don't know what the rule is, I'd encourage you to listen to any phrases your kids repeat, and also anything that consistently pops up in your head, and then saying, okay, well, what rule is around that? If I've got a tape and a story playing in my head, well, what rule is that?
Yeah.
That I have to be this, that, or the other. The only good mom is a stay-at-home mom, or the only good mom is one that, makes everything from organically sourced, soybeans in the field that she grew. Whatever it is that your brain thinks is reality. I mean, we're all making this up as we go along, right?
Yeah.
And so the cool thing about that, though, is we get to change it.
Exactly. That's the most important thing. And I think we would love this to be the takeaway for you, is that it's not written in stone. It's not. And if we believe that it is, then Libby would never have overcome her Lyme. She would have believed what the doctors were telling her, and what her body was telling her, which was, this isn't good.
Yeah.
If I had believed, then my daughter Charlotte, who lived for 15 years, wouldn't have lived for one, because the doctors told us the night she got last rites on the night she was born. And if we had believed what we had been told, we wouldn't have had the 15 really, really difficult and really, really amazing, beautiful years of growth and love and lessons and all of that. So you have to be willing to see that it can change, and you don't have to believe what you've already been seeing. Whatever it's already been, it's already been. It doesn't mean that's what it has to be in the future. And that's a lot of the work that we do, is completing that, so that you can create the future that you want, so that you have a blank slate. So if if you're still in motherhood, well, we're always mothers, right? No matter how old they get. But if you're still raising your kids, or if you can apply it to anything, it's, this is tonight's conversation, but whatever it is, you want to break those patterns and those cycles and create something different. That's what we want you to know is possible.
Yeah. And I mean, you know what? You don't have to do any of it. That's the other beautiful thing. You can ask, is this working me? Is this working for me? Is this serving me? Is this serving my family? And if it's not, you can say, well, what could be better? And I mean, when I talk to clients sometimes, Linda, they're like, oh, I can't even imagine what it would be like if it was different, like really, really sick patients, people who've had Lyme for 20 years, people who've had sick kids for decades. And, the thing is, sometimes we can't really imagine it. And because it's only ever been that way for so long, and we're so exhausted, or we're so, we have all these reasons why we can't. And that's, maybe when you can, just sit there, hold your hand on your heart for a minute, breathe in, and just say, okay, but what if? What if I am doing and not trying? Yeah, I know it hurts. I know I've lost hair and I'm throwing up on the floor, like I haven't been able to walk in 3 years, and, I can't even lift my head. I'm so sick. I mean, that was my Lyme therapy for years. But I would just sit there and say, no, I know it's not done yet. I'm not giving up. And it didn't matter what it felt like. It was, and the other beautiful thing about these hard things is they help us get that grit and that determination. They help us build muscles. Because if everything comes easy to us, then guess what? The first, we get a hangnail and we have a nervous breakdown, like because we don't have the muscle and the skill built to be able to do that. So, is bodybuilding fun? Is weightlifting a good time? Not for most people. But it's, it can be, but it's a necessary thing. It's part of what we need to get a certain result. Same is true with parenting and reparenting. It's not all glory. It's not all, this is awesome. Sometimes it's painful and sometimes it's hard, but it's worth it because we're building those muscles that are going to make us better people, better parents, better mothers, better women.
Yeah. And I would almost say you can count on it's going to be hard at times, at least. Yes. The breakthrough on the other side of that hardness is amazing. There's such joy, but it's definitely going to be deep, and some things that you haven't wanted to really look at can show up, but it's so worth it. So, if you want to have a conversation about this and not necessarily about motherhood, but just the concepts that we're talking about, the tools that we use to shift whatever it is in your life and to break those cycles, or specifically about reparenting yourself or your inner child, any and all of the things that might be coming up for you. Libby and I are both available, right, Lib, to have a conversation?
Absolutely. We'd love to talk with you and just see how we might be able to help you get a different perspective on life, because you're here on this earth for a reason. And the harder the struggle you're in, that means you have an even greater purpose, the greater your purpose. And so, I just encourage you to, reach out to us and see how we may be able to share these tools with you and walk you through. And the beautiful thing that Linda does so well, that I love and appreciate so much, is she doesn't just throw a bunch of tools over the fence and say, good luck, have a good time with that. She actually walks alongside people and helps implement and change and walk through the icky stuff, which is such a beautiful gift, because it's hard to do this stuff on your own. I've done it. I know. Like, sometimes I was the only one in the room doing the work. And it's hard when you're doing it alone and you're not exactly sure what you're doing, frankly. And so having someone who's an expert who can walk alongside you and really encourage you, coach you, help you get through the sticky points, it's invaluable. So yes, I encourage you to give us a call or reach out to us.
Thank you. Thanks, Lib. Yeah, I think both you and I spent a couple of decades trying this, trying that, gathering this information, looking at that. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, that was BS. Between you and I, you could probably total up 40 years. Not kidding. At least 2 decades each of us. Yeah. So, and everybody's entitled to do their journey the way they want. But if you have been spinning your wheels and you're ready to, you know what, I just want to move forward. I'm going to put in the comments here the link so that you don't even have to send a comment. You can just look right here and grab a time that works for you on our calendar, and we will set aside the time. Now I'm asking you, if you do that, please come, because we take it very seriously. We will set aside our time and we will make it be all about you. In fact, you'll be filling out a questionnaire so that we can have some information to make it be effective for you and have it really be a call that makes a difference. That's our intention when we set aside our time for you. There's no charge for this call. But please, you also come with the same intention. And if you book an appointment, we look forward to seeing you.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for this time, Linda. And I look forward to seeing you back same time next week, same day. Yeah. And this has been a great conversation. So let's keep it going.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your comments in the chat. If you want to haven't put any other comments there, we'd love to see those, or maybe even any ideas of things that this sparked that you might be interested in hearing about on another episode. So
yeah, great idea. Thank you. Yeah, this is streaming in multiple places, like 6 different places at least. So we won't see your comments in the moment, but we will go back and look. Okay.
All right.
We'll see you next week. Thanks, Libby.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.